Hi, I'm Jill from Jill's Table. Today we're going to make a wild mushroom risotto using one of my favorite new items for the kitchen, the Emile risotto pot. The thing I love about this pot, it goes on the stove and in the oven. First of all, we're going to start sauteing up some onions and some butter and olive oil. We'll take half of our 3 tablespoons of butter and half of our olive oil over medium-high heat. As soon as that's melted, we'll add our onion. About one cooking onion will do. We're going to cook the onion until it's soft. There's a wide range of specialty mushrooms you can use for this risotto. King oysters are one option, chanterelles if you can find them. Cremini mushrooms are widely available in your grocery store. Maitake mushrooms are a little bit of a newer mushroom available, and also fresh shiitakes. Dry porcinis are another option to put in here, and they will give a lot of wonderful flavor. I had the pleasure of having fresh ones in Italy, and we used them in a risotto when we were there. So when my onions are nice and soft, now I'm going to add in my 2 cups of rice. Now there are a number of options that you can use when you're making risotto. Arborio rice is the most common one. You can also use carnaroli. There's also Violano Nano and other varieties from Italy. The key is to use a nice plump rice that's going to provide a nice creamy result. We'll add the rice to the onions, and you want to get all the rice kernels nice and glossy from the butter and the olive oil. So as soon as you can see them nice and shiny, it's at this point we're going to add our white wine. So we'll add our white wine. The trick when you're making risotto is you have to add hot broth, 1 ladleful at a time, let it absorb before you add the next one. That's the thing that I think intimidates home cooks. Risotto's not hard to make, it's just time consuming. It's helpful if you have a helper in the kitchen that can stand by your side and stir and help you along. The other thing to remember, always have your broth piping hot as you add it to your risotto. Today I'm using chicken broth, but you can also use vegetable broth, which would make this risotto a nice vegetarian option. The thing I really enjoy about the Emile risotto pot is that you can use it for so much more than just risotto. You can also make cassoulet in this dish. You can make a wonderful stew, and it's big enough that you can make a nice bowl of soup as well. And again, one of the best features of the flame pot, you can start it on the stove and you can finish it in your oven. While the rice is cooking, I'm going to get started on my mushrooms. So to my saute pan, I'm going to add the rest of my butter and the remainder of my olive oil. And we're going to cook the mushrooms at medium-high heat. We'll wait for our butter and our oil to warm up before we put in all of those tasty mushrooms. You want to cook your mushrooms until they're just tender and starting to give off their liquid. Since this takes about 10 minutes for the mushrooms and our risotto is going to take about another 15 minutes, I've got 2 all ready to go so we can jump ahead to the next stage of the risotto. So this risotto is about 3/4 of the way there, so I'm still going to need to add some more broth and all of my delicious mushrooms that I've already cooked up. So we'll add another ladleful of the broth. Probably a couple will do. And these delicious sauteed mushrooms. This is one of my favorite meals to have. The trick with risotto, make sure when you plate it, it's still very nice and creamy because it will continue to absorb all of the broth. And again, we want this to be nice and creamy, so I'm going to add more broth. Always check your seasoning before you serve. Check that you have enough salt And we'll finish it off with a little bit of freshly cracked pepper. This is such a great comfort dish. Going to add in a little bit of freshly cracked pepper. And I'll start out with a little bit of sea salt before I do my taste test. And I'm going to stir in that beautiful Parmesan cheese. I like to hold a little bit back for a final garnish. This is just going to add to that wonderful creaminess of this dish. So it's always important to check before you serve. Check your seasoning, make sure your salt's good and your pepper. We need a little bit more sea salt and a little bit more cracked pepper. And just a little bit more broth to ensure that when it comes to the table, it's still really nice and creamy. And we'll want to do a final taste test before we plate it. I like to serve my risotto in a risotto bowl. It's got a perfect well in the middle to be able to put your nice creamy risotto. It smells so delicious. A little drizzle of truffle oil before we serve. Just a few drops will do. And I always like to finish a dish off with a little sprig of thyme, or you can use parsley as well. And another little sprinkling of Parmesan cheese. And here you have a specialty mushroom risotto using the Emile risotto pot.